You're listening to Rabbi Aryeh Wolbe of Torch in Houston, Texas. This is the Thinking Talmudist Podcast.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Thinking Talmudist Podcast. It's so wonderful to be here. Today, we're going to start a new piece of Talmud, Tractate Sanhedrin 82a, which discusses something that's related to this week's Torah portion. This week's Torah portion is the portion of Pinchas. Pinchas, we know, was a zealot. The Torah says, Bikano et kinati, he was zealous on my behalf. And God rewarded Pinchas for his zealousness because he didn't do it out of his own, personal desire to harm someone. He did it because this was the honor of God that he was standing up for. So the Talmud now is talking, the Mishnah, the previous Mishnah, that is explained in the Talmud, the previous Mishnah talks about the different zealots that may kill someone and where they would not be held liable if they did kill someone, and it brings certain scenarios. So now the Talmud's going to talk about what was previously mentioned in the Mishnah, that zealots are permitted to kill one who cohabits with an Armenian woman. And this is what happened over there in the time of Pinchas, where the young Jewish boys, like Zimri, was together with Kozbi Bas Tzur, right? She was the princess of her land, and here one of the leading people among the Jewish people was cohabitating with her. We're going to see now the Talmud's going to talk about this whole story. So Rav Chisda, Amar Rav Chisda said, Holach li molech, that if one comes to court while such a transgression is being committed, to take counsel as to whether he should kill the sinner, ein moirin loy. The judges do not instruct him to do so, since the Mishnah's ruling applies only to one whose zealousness is self-inspired. So what does this mean? Imagine someone sees something that is warranting the sinner, so to speak, to be put to death. But the zealous person who sees this, the Pinchas, so to speak, now goes to court. He says, I just want to know if I have permission to execute this person. So the court will say no. The court will say no. Why? They're supposed to say no. Why? Because it only applies when one's zealousness is self-inspired, and they just go do it at the moment of this. And we'll see in a second what this means. The Gemara cites a similar ruling. Itmanami, it is also stated, Amar Rabba Bar Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Rabba Bar Bar Chana said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Haba li malech ein morin lo, one who comes to court to take counsel as to whether he should kill the sinner, the judges do not instruct him to do so. V'lo od, and not only this, but also, Ella, she'im peirash Zimri v'horgo Pinchas, if Zimri, while he was in the act, stopped, separated himself from Kozbi, the woman he was with, and then Pinchas killed him, Neragalav, Pinchas would be executed for that in court. Pinchas, who's the zealot, would be killed for doing what essentially is permitted. And what else? Even more. Nefach Zimri v'hargol Pinchas. What's if Zimri had turned the tables and while engaged in the act of cohabitation killed Pinchas? Ein Neragalav. He would not be killed for that. He would not be executed in court on Pinchas's account. Shaharei rodefu, because Pinchas is considered a pursuer, and someone who is a pursuer is to be killed. So let's understand what's going on over here. Let's look at some of the commentary. So the story of Zimri, the leader of the tribe of Shimon, who consorted with Kozbi, the daughter of the Midianite prince, with full public knowledge, is recounted in this week's Torah portion. Okay? It was in front of everybody. He brought her in to the camp and cohabitated with her in front of everyone. So everybody saw what was going on. Now, once the evil deed is completed, it is no longer permissible for a zealot to kill the offender. If he does so, the zealot is subject to a court-administered death penalty. Why? Because you just murdered somebody. You just murdered somebody. You don't have a right to just murder somebody because you're a zealot. That's not, if they were in the middle of the action that warranted the death penalty, that's fine. But once it's done, they can't do anything. But now what happens? This is very interesting. If Zimri, the man from the tribe of Shimon, while he's doing what he's doing, warranting him a death, he sees that Pinchas is coming to him to kill him, and he kills Pinchas instead, he's not going to be held liable. Why? Because it's a very fundamental principle in Judaism. Someone who comes to kill you, you can kill him first. Okay? Let's see this. In general, one who pursues another to kill him may be killed in self-defense by his intended victim and by anyone else who observed the incident. In this case, Zimri was allowed to kill Pinchas in self-defense because Pinchas, while permitted to slay Zimri, was nonetheless not authorized by the court to do so. Hence, just as Pinchas was permitted to kill Zimri, so Zimri was permitted to save himself, even at the cost of Pinchas's life. However, no other person was allowed to kill Pinchas to save Zimri, inasmuch as Pinchas's actions were permitted. Indeed, since all other people were also permitted to act as zealots and kill Zimri, it would be illogical to say that they could kill Pinchas to save Zimri. So what's going on over here? What's really happening here? Okay, what's happening here is that Pinchas sees what's going on here. Pinchas sees that there is an act that should not be done. And this act is warranting by the Torah's standards. Again, today this doesn't apply because today we don't have courts the way we had back in the time of the temple. Today we don't have courts that we had back in the time of the Jewish people being in the desert. Today we don't have, so this does not apply today. So don't think, okay, here, Dr. Harvey, okay, we don't allow for such behavior today. Today we have court systems. Today we have legal systems. Today this would not be condoned in any which way. But in the time of the Jewish people being in their land, or in the time of the desert, where the Jewish people were instructed as the Torah tells, and again, those things change in a world like today. It's just like, imagine, the Torah tells us that you have to follow the law of the land. You have to follow the law of the land. So the laws that we have today in the United States are the laws that we are obligated to abide by. All right. So if you go and you tell the police officer, he stops you and he says, a regular routine traffic stop, and he says to you, "Why are you speeding?" You say, "What do you mean why am I speeding? I'm running to go daven. I'm going to pray in synagogue." Right? That's not an excuse. You still have to follow the law. Just because you have a spiritual Jewish reason doesn't negate your responsibility to fulfill the laws of the land. So, here, Pinchas sees what's going on. He takes his spear and kills the two who are cohabitating publicly and desecrating God's name in the world. So now, the Talmud says that if the instigator, if Zimri would see this about to occur, that he's going to be killed, and in self-defense kills Pinchas, he'd be off the hook. Totally off the hook. Okay. So now the Gemara relates the unfortunate incident of Zimri and Cosby, so that we understand this a little bit better. Vayomer Moshe al Shoftei Yisrael. Scripture states, Numbers 25, verse number 5, again, this week's Torah portion. Moses said to the judges of Israel, "Let each man kill his man who were attached to Baal Peor." That was an idolatry. After Bilam, we remember Bilam was hired by King Balak in last week's Torah portion to curse the Jewish people. So it didn't work out. It was an utter failure. So he had one last hope, knowing that sexual morality is a foundation of Jewish holiness and that God does not tolerate immorality. The Torah mentions God's wrath, where it says, af, v'chora af, only when he has been provoked by immorality. Bilam counseled Balak to entice Jewish men to this inappropriate behavior. Consequently, Midianite and Moabite women invited the Jews to feast and drink with them, and when the men became aroused and wanted to cohabit, those women drew Baal Peor, which was an idol, from their robes and insisted that the Jewish men bow down to them. Okay, so this was a whole plan of how to get the Jewish people to sin. Now you have to understand that this is not the only time that we see this. We see this so many times throughout our history where the Jewish people were enticed by the nations around them to distance themselves from God. We had the famous story of Esther, the book of Esther. It's all about the party of Achashverosh and how Haman was plotting to get the Jewish people to sin. That's what he wanted. He wanted the Jewish people, because if you want to get rid of the Jews, the only way to get rid of the Jews is to make them sin. That's it. If you can get the Jewish people to sin, you've got them, and then their actions are indefensible, and then the Almighty will let them be handled by the nations of the world. Consequently, we see the Midianite and Moabite women invited the Jews and then got them to serve idols. So, Halach Shivto Shel Shimon Eitzel Zimri ben Solu, when the people from the tribe of Shimon saw that capital punishment was being meted out to other members of their tribe for participating in the idolatrous worship of Baal Peor, the tribe of Shimon went to Zimri ben Solu. Who was Zimri ben Solu? He is identical to Shlumiel ben Suri Shaddai, who is the leader of the tribe of Shimon. So this is the leader of the tribe. He's the leader of the tribe. They come to him and they say, what do we do? Amrulo, they said to him, Hain done in dina nefashos, they are judging cases of capital punishment against members of our tribe. V'ata Yoshe v'shosek, and you are here as our leader, sitting and remaining silent. Me'asa, so what did Zimri do? Amad v'kibeitz asorim esrim v'arba elef miYisrael v'holach etzel Cosby. He arose and gathered together 24,000 Israelites and went to Cosby, the Midianite woman. Omar Law, he said to her, Hashmili, listen to me. Okay? Submit yourself to cohabiting with me. Omar Law, Bas Melachani. She said to him, are you crazy? I'm the daughter of a king. V'chein tziva liyavi. And so my father ordered me, Lo tishmi elo lagadol shebehem. Do not submit except to the greatest of them. Omar Law, Afu nasi shevedhu. Whereupon Zimri said to her, I'm also a prince. I'm a tribal prince. I'm the leader of the tribe of Shimon. Then not only that, Elosh gadol mimeni. He is greater than me. Moses is greater than me. Shehu sheni labeten. He is the second issue of his mother's womb. Shimon was, while Moses was the third to his mother's womb. So I'm even greater, he was saying. That's what he was saying. He's saying, I'm even greater than Moses. Moses was the third of his mother's womb, and I am the second to my mother's womb. Tafso bebloriso. Zimri then grabbed him by his hair, v'evi'etzel Moshe, and brought him to Moshe. Amarlo, Zimri said to Moshe, Ben Amram, son of Amram, which is sort of a degrading way to call Moshe. Zo asura o muteris. Is this woman, this princess, the Moabite woman, is she permitted or forbidden to me? V'im tomar asur, and if you say that she is forbidden, bas yisro mihitir lach. You, don't forget, Moses married a Midianite woman, the daughter of Yisro. Nis'alma mimena halacha. At that moment, the ruling that zealots may kill one who cohabits with an idolatress escaped Moshe. So Moshe forgot some of his Torah. Go'u kula b'bchia, and all the people wept They cried loudly. And this is as the verse states, and they were weeping at the entrance of the tent. Rashi explains that in fact, there was a great difference between the cases of Zimri and Moses. On the one hand, Moses married Yisro's daughter before the Torah was given, when all humans, Jacob's descendants included, were classified as Bnei Noach, the children of Noach. Hence, Moses was allowed to take a Midianite wife at that time. When the revelation at Mount Sinai occurred, and the Jewish people became a Jewish people, a nation that are now following the teachings of the Torah, Moshe's wife entered into the covenant between the Jewish people and God as a convert, as did the mixed multitudes that accompanied the Jewish people when they left Egypt. And Moses was therefore permitted to retain her as his wife. Zimri, on the other hand, desired to take a Midianite woman after the revelation at Mount Sinai, when all Jews were bound by the laws of the Torah which forbade such action. So here he's trying to say, what are you any different than me, Moses? You were with a Midianite woman, and I'm with a Midianite woman. So we're not any different at all. And plus, I'm better than you, because I'm the second to my mother's womb, and you're the third. The Gemara continues to explicate the episode of Zimri and Cosby Viksiva. Yar Pinchas ben Elazar. It says that Pinchas, the son of Elazar, saw. What did he see? The Gemara says, Mara, what did he see? The Gemara replies, Amarav, Rav said, Ra Masev Niskar Halacha. He saw the incident involving Zimri and Cosby, and he recalled the ruling on the matter, the ruling that Moshe forgot. Amar lo, Pinchas said to Moshe, Achi avi abba lokach limadetani, biriditucha mehar Sinai, brother of my father's father, my great uncle. Did you not teach me upon descending Mount Sinai habol esakusis kanon pogambo, regarding one who cohabits with a Kuthian woman, zealots may kill him? Amar lo Moshe. Moshe said, Kraino di igarto, ihu lehevi parvanko. Let the one who reads the letter by the agent to carry out its instruction. And this, our sages tell us, is since Moses' teaching would not extend to allow him to explicitly instruct Pinchas to slay Zimri, as Rav Chizda stated above, Moses cunningly couched his approval in the form of a parable, which Pinchas interpreted on his own. He understood that Moshe was giving him the nod that this is indeed what the Torah teaches, and that he was allowed to execute Zimri and Cosby. So what's there to really learn from this piece of Talmud? There's a lot to discuss, and the Talmud continues. Maybe we'll continue that next week. But what's really going on over here? We see that there is, you see, I don't know about most of you, but at least myself, there's some parts of this that make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. What's this Sharia law? What's going on here? Like you just kill people because you're a zealot? So definitely not. But we do see that there is a very important understanding that we need to connect with in this week's Torah portion. And that is the idea of accountability. One of the fundamental teachings in our Torah, if you look right away from the beginning of creation, God creates heaven and earth, 6 days of creation, right? Then we have Shabbos, and we have the story of Adam and Eve. And what happens? God says, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't eat from this tree. And they eat from the tree. And what happens? They're immediately punished. Why are they immediately punished? Because the world cannot exist without there being a concept of repercussions for our actions, both to the good and to the bad. When we do good, we get good. When we do bad, we get bad. It comes right back at us. The good things that we do will always be rewarded. And the evil things, and sometimes we can twist it and we can make it want to fit into our ideology. We can make it want to fit into try to prove a certain point. but it's crooked. It's not correct. It's not appropriate. It's not what the Torah says to do. We have to understand that there is a way. Who gives the court gives the court permission to kill someone, to execute someone? There's an amazing thing that we see in the Torah. The case of O.J. Simpson was a very, very famous case. You remember back in the 90s, the early 90s. And everybody was riveted by that whole court case. And people were discussing when they said that he was acquitted. Everyone was up in arms. So many people were like, how's this? There's no justice. This is crazy. I'm sure you remember this. Some of you were young teenagers then. And what happened? If that was brought to a Jewish court, they wouldn't even hear it. They wouldn't even hear the case. Why not? Because in Jewish court, there has to be a witness. If there's no witness, there's no case. If there's no witness, there's no case. You cannot bring a case to court without a witness. And in that case, there was no witness. So someone would say, I suspect that so-and-so murdered such and such. Well, do you have any witnesses? No witnesses. Okay, have a great day, guys. It's nice to see you. That's the way it would go. It wouldn't need, in fact, this is a case that we've brought many, many times as an example. Imagine you're standing by your window and you see two people. One person is running after the other. They're both running. They're running. You see them running. The guy in the back is holding a knife. He's holding a knife. Running after the person, running after him. And then they go past where you can't see anymore. You're looking out your window, you can't see them anymore. A few minutes later, you see the guy who was chasing after the first one with the knife. You see him coming, walking back with a knife dripping with blood. And he says, now I killed him. Now he's never going to bother me again. You see him, you ask him from the window, you say, hey, what happened to the guy? What did you do? He says, I just murdered him. I just killed him. I stabbed him to death. Heaven forbid. Would you be able to go to court and say, I'm a witness? No. Because you didn't see it. Circumstantial evidence and all of that doesn't help in Jewish court. What's going to happen? You're going to come to court and you say, did you see him stab him? Nope. So what did you see? I saw him running after him with a knife. And I saw him coming back after. And he said that he killed him. The person's not believed to incriminate himself. If you didn't see the actual action of murder, you can't talk about it in court. You're not accepted as a witness. There needs to be solid verification. And the witnesses are separated and they're cross-examined and they evaluate if they're both saying the truth. Everything had to line up perfectly in order for the court to have the right to mete out punishment. Everything needed to line up in order for the court to mete out punishment. Hashem is the one who metes out punishment. If Hashem gives the court the right to do it, everything needs to line up. It doesn't mean that the person's not going to get punished. He will get punished. He'll get punished. But he'll get punished from the Almighty, from heaven. In order for human beings to have the power to decide who lives and who doesn't through a court, that you need to have overwhelming evidence that lines up perfectly. If one says it was daytime and one says it was nighttime, case is thrown out. If one says it was 4 o'clock, one says it was 5 o'clock, thrown out. If one says there was a tree, it was right next to the tree, the other person says no, it was next to the bush. Thrown out everything, every detail. Because if something was off, it was a sign from heaven that you should not be the one to handle this as a court. And the exception to this would be the case of Pinchas. Yeah, we're not encouraged to go kill people. We're not encouraged ever in the Torah to take justice into our own hands. That one exception was the story of Pinchas. That one exception. Even still, today, it's not something that's practiced. Today, it's not something. Today, we have civil courts, we have federal courts, we have many different ways in which we can handle things. We don't mete out judgment and punishment ourselves. That's not our place. But we understand that going behind the story, understanding some of the conversation that transpired is it's interesting. It's interesting the conversation that went on with Moshe and Pinchas. Where suddenly, why did Moshe forget suddenly the law? Ever wonder that? Why didn't he remember it? Because if he gave a ruling, then Pinchas wouldn't be able to mete out the punishment as a zealot, because he got a ruling from a court. All right, so this is a little bit different than our typical Talmud, but I hope and pray that we all merit to do the right thing all the time, to always be on the right path, to always be on a quest, on a mission to get closer to God, and to elevate ourselves every day of our lives to become the greatest people that we can possibly become, and to maximize our opportunities in this world to bring godliness into our lives. So my dear friends, this concludes this episode of the Thinking Talmudist Podcast. I look forward for your questions. I look forward to continuing to learn together. Have a magnificent Shabbos.
You've been listening to Rabbi Aryeh Wolbe on a podcast produced by Torch, the Torah Outreach Resource Center of Houston. Please help sponsor an episode so we can continue to produce more quality Jewish content for our listeners around the globe. Please visit torchweb.org to donate and partner with us on this incredible endeavor.